A man and his child have spent their entire lives in a cave. From the time that they were both born, they were told to not venture outside the cave because of the dangers that exist in the outside world. But one day, the man gets a little bit curious and decides to walk a little bit closer to the exit of the cave where the light begins to seep through. As this man is about to take his first steps outside the cave, a large shadow appears, stretching 30 feet wide, and it is followed by a loud screech. In fear that a monster exists right outside, he scampers back into the dark cave. So a few days pass and the man gets curious again. Maybe the shadow won't be there today. So he begins walking towards the edge of the cave. Right when the light is about to seep through, a large shadow stretching 30 feet wide appears, and it is followed by a loud screech. In fear that the monster is still there, he scampers back into the dark cave. At this point, the man is so scared that he is not going back to the edge of the cave for whatever reason. So many weeks pass and the man realizes that they are running out of food inside the cave. Eventually, they eat their last meal and the child begins to get starving. So the man, out of options, begins walking to the edge of the cave. So the man begins taking steps towards the edge of the cave. Right when the light begins to seep through, a large shadow stretching 30 feet wide appears from overhead, followed by a loud screech. Now at this point where the man would normally be scared, he realizes that the fear of losing his child to starvation is more than the fear of the shadow. So the man takes a step outside the cave, and then another step, and then another step, and then he quickly turns around and looks up above the cave and he sees a little bird. You see, because this little bird was flying so high above the cave and calling for its family members, that was casting a large shadow and was the screech that the man heard. The man eventually takes a few more steps towards the edge of the cliff that the cave sits on. And as the man eventually peeks over the edge of the cliff, he sees a landscape that he couldn't even imagine. There's plants, there's a forest, there's mountains, there's lake, there's tons of food everywhere. So there's two morals of this story here. One of which is that because the man was able to overcome his fear, he was able to live in a much better world. And the second kind of moral of the story here is that for a lot of people, it takes a big source of motivation in order to overcome one little fear. You know, a lot of people these days have fears, about social rejection. Some guys have fears about asking out a girl. Some girls have fears about asking out a guy. Some people have fears about spiders, planes, heights, whatever it may be. There's always a way to conquer that fear. And that way is to face the fear head on, I guess. So what I'm trying to say here is instead of psychologically trying to overcome your fear and, trying to say to yourself that, hey, maybe spiders aren't so scary. Maybe you should find the motivation to overcome your fear. So maybe the motivation for you is not wanting to freak out every time you see a little one of those critters creeping up your wall. But anyways, this was just a quick story. I just want to thank you all for listening and watching this. And I hope you all have a great day. You are all very beautiful people. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.